Lesson 1.3 Estimate Sums. Use rounding or compatible numbers to estimate the sum. So we know we're going to be rounding and using compatible numbers to estimate the sum. Now, when we round, we know we're going to be rounding using tens and hundreds. Compatible numbers are numbers like 25 and 75 that are easy to use because these numbers equal 100. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. They equal 100 and are easy to compute. That's why they're called compatible numbers. They're the easy numbers. Now, estimate. Whenever we estimate, we find something close to. We find a number close to the answer. So the sum means the answer to an addition problem. So whenever you see the word sum, S-U-M, you know we're going to be adding, and the sum is called the answer. Number one, 171 plus 727. In this example, they use compatible numbers. So that's this 75 right here, and it's 25. Since these numbers were close to 75 and 25, they used the compatible numbers to make it easy to compute. So without even adding this up, you can find the answer. Since the 1 and the 7 is in the hundreds place, you know this is 100 plus this 700 is 800. And if you add, we know that 75 plus 25 equals 100, so that's another 100. So 100 plus this 100 right here is 200 plus this 700 is 900. Now, 900 is our estimate. But if we wanted to find the exact answer, we would add 1 plus 7 is 8, 7 plus 2 is 9, and 1 plus 7 is 8. The exact answer is 898. But we were not looking for the exact answer. They asked us to find the estimate. Number 2, 87 plus 34. We're going to round this one to the nearest tens. 87 is between 80 and 90, but it's closer to 90. So we round it to 90. 34 is between 30 and 40, but it's closest to 30. Now we add these up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 9 plus 3 is 12. Our estimate is 120. But if we were to find the exact answer, we would add 7 plus 4, that's 11. 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 plus 3 is 12. The exact answer would be 121. But we were not looking for the exact answer. They asked us to estimate. Number 3, 222. When we round it to the nearest tens, it can be 220 because it's between 222 is between 220 and 230, but it's closest to 220. 203, rounding to the nearest tens, is 200, is between 200 and 210, but it's closest to 200. So now when we add it up, 0 plus 0 is 0, 2 plus 0 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4, 420. But if we wanted to find the exact answer, we would add 2 plus 3, that'll be 5. 2 plus 0 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4, 425. And once we find our estimate, if the actual answer is not close to our estimate, then something is wrong. We made a mistake somewhere. Now, number 4, 52 and 39. So now we can round to the nearest tens. 52 is between 50 and 60, but it's closer to 50. Number 39 is between 30 and 40, but it's closest to 40. When we add these numbers together, 0 plus 0 equals 0, 5 plus 4 equals 9. Now, if we were to add 52 and 39, 2 plus 9 equals 11. 1 plus 5 equals 6. 6 plus 3 equals 9. See, very close. All these numbers are close because we have an estimate. Number 5, 256 plus 321. So 256 is between 250 and 260, but it's closest to 260. 321 is between 320 and 330, but it's closest to 320. When we add it together, 0 plus 0 equals 0, 6 plus 2 equals 8, 2 plus 3 equals 5. We have 580. Now, if we would solve the problem to find the exact answer, it would be 6 plus 1 equals 7, 5 plus 2 equals 7, 2 plus 3 equals 5. 577 and 580. Very close. So our estimate was correct. Number 6, 302 plus 412. 302, if we're rounding to the nearest tens, it becomes 300. 412, if we're rounding to the nearest tens, becomes 410. But let's round this one to the nearest hundred. So 300 rounded to the nearest hundred is 302 rounded to the nearest hundred is 300. And 412 rounded to the nearest hundred is 400. Now we add these together. 0 plus 0 equals 0. 0 plus 0 equals 0. 3 plus 4 equals 7. So our estimate is 700. But if we were to solve the actual problem, 2 plus 2 equals 4. 0 plus 1 equals 1. 3 plus 4 equals 7. 714 and 700, close. So our estimate is correct. So we rounded 300 to the nearest 100. We rounded 400 to the nearest 100. Now, if we would have rounded 302 to the nearest tens, it would have been between 300 and 310, and it would have been closer to 300. If we would have round 412 to the nearest tens, it would have been between 410 and 420, closer to 410. But we decided to round to the nearest 100. Now, back to number 5, 256. If we rounded to the nearest tens, if we would have rounded 256 to the nearest 100, it would have been between 200 and 300, but it would have been closer to 300. 321, if we would have rounded to the nearest hundreds, it would have been between 300 and 400, but it would have been closer to 300. Number 4, 52, if we would have rounded 52 to the nearest 100, it would have been 100. If we would have rounded 39 to the nearest 100, it would have been 0. But with small numbers like these in the tens, we usually round these to the nearest tens, not the nearest hundreds. Number 3, 222. If we would have rounded to the nearest hundreds, we would have gotten 200, 203. If we would have rounded to the nearest 100, we would have got 200. Number 87. If we would have rounded this to the nearest 100, it would have been 134. If we would have rounded to the nearest 100, it would have been 0. But we don't, with small numbers, with numbers in the tens with just two places, with just two digits, we don't round these to the nearest 100. We usually round these to the nearest tens. And this one was a compatible number, but if we were to round it to the nearest tens, it would be 170. If we were to round this to the nearest hundreds, it would be 200. 727. If we were to round to the nearest tens, it'll be 720. If we round it to the nearest 100, it'll be 700. Whenever we try to get an estimate, we try to get it as close to the actual answer as possible. So rounding to the nearest 10 is more precise, more exact. Rounding to the nearest hundreds is okay for the bigger numbers. On to number 7. 325 plus 458. Now these are horizontal. We don't add one horizontal, we add vertically. But before we add it vertically, let's round these two numbers. 325. If we're rounding to the nearest tens, would be 330. 325 rounds to 330 because it's between 320 and 330. Now, the number that's exactly in the middle of 320 and 330 is 325. Since 325 is directly in the middle of 320 and 330, we round it up. We round up whenever it's exactly in the middle. Now, 458 is between, rounding to nearest tens, is between 450 and 460, but it's closer to 460. Now we add them vertically. So 330 plus 460 equals 0 plus 0 is 0, 3 plus 6 is 9, 3 plus 4 is 7. So 790. It rounds to 790. But if we wanted to round to the nearest hundreds, we could turn this 325 to a 300 and this 458 to a 500. 300 plus 500 is easy to solve, is 800. So this example, we rounded to both the nearest tens, which is right here, and to the nearest hundred, which is up here. You only need one. Number 8, 620 plus 107. Now, 620 is already a 10. So let's add these numbers to the nearest hundreds. Let's round these numbers to the nearest hundreds. 620 rounded to the nearest hundred would be 600 because it would be between 600 and 700, but closer to 600. And 107 would be between 100 and 200, but it's a lot closer to 100. So 600 plus 100 is easy to solve, is 700. We made it easier for us to solve. But if we would round if we would round 620 to the nearest 10, it would stay 620. And if we would round 107 to the nearest tens, it would be 110 because it would be between 100 and 110, but it'll be closer to 110. Now, we don't add one vertically, so when we don't add one horizontally, so when we add it vertically, 620 plus 110, we get 0 plus 0 equals 0, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 6 plus 1 equals 7. Rounded to the nearest hundreds over here, and this one is rounding to the nearest tens. Either or is fine. Remember, we are not looking for an exact answer. We're trying to find something close to the answer. Number 9. Stephanie read 72 pages on Sunday and 83 pages on Monday. About how many pages did Stephanie read during the 2 days? Let's find our important numbers. 72 pages on Sunday, 83 pages on Monday. Now, about how many pages did Stephanie read during the 2 days? So, about how many, that tells us we're going to be estimating, and we have to find something close to the answer. About how many pages. So they're not looking for an exact answer, they're looking for an estimate. And remember, when we find an estimate, we find something close to the exact answer. Now, about how many pages did Stephanie read during the 2 days? So we have 72 on the first day. Now we're going to round that 72 to the nearest 10. 72 to the nearest 10. 72 is between 70 and 80, but it's closer to 70. Now 83. 83 is between 80 and 90, but it's closer to 80. Now, when we add 70 plus 80, we get 0 plus 0 equals 0, 7 plus 8 equals 15. So, about how many pages did Stephanie read during the 2 days? She read about 150 pages. Number 10. Matt biked 345 miles last month. This month, he has biked 107 miles. Altogether, about how many miles has Matt biked last month and this month? So let's find our important numbers and keywords. So 345 miles last month. This month was 107 miles. Altogether, about how many miles has Matt biked last month and this month? So altogether, we know that means to add. Whenever we have something together, we're adding it. Now, about how many miles? We already know about how many means to estimate to find what's. We're not looking for the exact answer. We're looking for something close to the answer. About how many? We're not looking for the exact answer, just close to it. So last month was 345 miles. Now, if we can round this number to the nearest 10, 345 to the nearest 10. Now, 345 is between 340 and 350. It's exactly in the middle of 340 and 350. Since it's exactly in the middle of 340 and 350, we round it to the bigger number. So we round it to 350 plus 107. If we're rounding to the nearest 10, it becomes 110 because it's between 100 and 110. But it's closer to 110. Now, when we add these numbers together, we get, remember, we don't add going horizontally, so let's add it vertically. So we're going to rewrite it vertically. 350 plus 110. 0 plus 0 equals 0. 5 plus 1 equals 6. 3 plus 1 equals 4. 460. So about how many miles has Matt biked last month and this month? About 460. Now remember, they were not asking for the exact number. So if you add 345 and 107, you're going to get a different answer. But we're not looking for the exact answer. We're looking for an estimate. Number 11. Explain how to estimate 368 plus 231 in two different ways. So we can round to the nearest 10, we can round to the nearest 100, we can use compatible numbers. Let's round to the nearest tens and to the nearest 100. So let's see, explain how to estimate 368 plus 231. So first, if we're rounding to the nearest tens, we have to see which two tens is 368 close to. 368 is near 360 and 370. But which one is it closer to? It's closer to 370. Now 231 is between 230 and 240. But which one is it closer to? 230. That's one way to estimate it to the nearest tens. Now we don't add horizontally, so let's rewrite it vertically. So that's going to be 370 plus 230. 0 plus 0 is 0. 7 plus 3 is 10. We carry our 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. So that equals 600. And that's rounding to the nearest tens. Now let's round to the nearest hundreds. To the nearest hundred. So we have 368. We're gonna, because they asked for two different ways. Now at 368, we can round it to the nearest hundreds by finding the nearest hundreds. So 368 would be between 300 and 400. Now, which one is it closer to? 368 is closer to 400. So 368 would become, I'm gonna use a different color for this example. So 368, oh, I'm sorry. So when we're rounding to nearest tens, 368 would become 400, and 231 would be between 200 and 300, but it's closer to 200. So 400 plus 200, that's easier to solve because we're adding with zeros with straight hundreds. So 400 plus 200 would equal 600. And this is rounding to the nearest hundreds. Okay, on to number one in the back. The McBrides drove 317 miles on one day and 289 miles on the next day. Estimate the number of miles the McBrides drove during the 2 days. Let's find our important numbers and keywords. 317 miles on one day, 289 miles on the next day. Now they're asking us to estimate the number of miles they drove on the 2 days. So we know the word estimate means we're going to find something close to the answer. So we have our two important numbers. So let's begin. 317, if we round to the nearest hundred, 317 becomes 300, and 289 becomes 300. Now we have to find the amount of miles they drove for the 2 days, which is why we're adding. So the first day we have the amount, the second day we have the amount. So now when we add these two numbers together, we get 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 again is 0, 3 plus 3 is 6. So now we know about how many miles they drove the past 2 days. The McBrides drove about 600 miles. And that was with us rounding to the nearest hundreds. Now, even if we add to the nearest tens, we would still get about the same answer. As long as it's close to 600, we're fine. Number two, Ryan counted 63 birds in his backyard last week. This week, he counted 71 birds in his backyard. About how many birds did Ryan count? Let's find our important numbers. So it was 63 birds in his backyard last week. This week, he counted 71 birds in his backyard. So we always underline our question because it tells us what to do. So about how many birds did Ryan count is our question. It's telling us to find out. Now we already know that the word about means to estimate, which means close to. So that means we're not looking for an exact answer. We are not looking for an exact answer, just something close to the answer. So let's begin by using our two numbers. We have 63. We have 63 birds that we're going to round. Since these numbers are just two digits, 63 and 71, they're just two numbers. Let's round to the nearest tens. So 63 rounded to the nearest tens would be between 60 and 70, but it's closer to 60. So 63 becomes 60. Now 71 is between 70 and 80. So is closer to 71. It's closer to 70, so we round it to 70. Now, how many birds did Ryan count? We're going to add it to round it up. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 7 is 13. And of course, we know we're adding to get both days. We're trying to get both days. There were 2 days. So 60 plus 70 equals 130. So our answer is about 130 birds. Number 3, what name describes this shape? This 3D shape is a cube. A cube is made up of 6 squares. And here's the first square, and here's a square back, in the back of it. I'm sorry. The square in the front, the square in the back, the square at the top, the square at the bottom, the square at the left, the square at the right. So 6 total squares, like a dice. Number 4, is the sum even or odd? We know that the word sum is the answer to an addition sentence, so I'm going to put a plus sign on top of it. And even and odd, we already know that even numbers end in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. And we know that odd numbers end in 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9. So now when we add 6 plus 13, we have to get the sum first because they're asking us about the sum, the answer to the addition problem. So 6 plus 7 equals 13. Now, 13, is 13 odd or even? We look at the last number. The number at the end is a 3. We know it's going to be odd because it ends in 3. Numbers that end in 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 are odd. Number 5, what is 503 rounded to the nearest hundred? So 503, we have to round it to the nearest hundred. So 503 is between 500 and 600. Those are the 200. 503 falls in between, but it's closer to 500. So 503 rounds to 500. Number 6, what is 645 rounded to the nearest 10? So we're going to be rounding 645 to the nearest 10. Now 645 will be between 640 and 650. Which one is it closer to? 645 is exactly in the middle of 640 and 650. Since it's exactly in the middle, we round up to the bigger number. So it rounds to 650 when we're rounding to the nearest 10.